There is a moment early in this week's Torah portion that changes everything. Not only for Abraham, but for all who would come after him. As Jesse chanted, God says, Lech Lecha me'artzecha. Go from your land, from your birthplace, from your father's house, to the land that I will show you. It's not merely a command to wander, it is a call to faith. To move through the world guided by trust, devotion, and love. Abraham steps forward not knowing where he is going, believing that holiness will be found in the journey itself. This week, we lost someone whose entire life was an act of Lech Lecha. A man who walked with faith, who lived for others, who quietly and steadily sanctified the world around him. Our funeral director and teacher and my dear friend, Reverend Joseph Marciano, of blessed memory. Abraham teaches us that faith is not proven by the size of one's miracles, but by the constancy of one's steps. Yseph lived that kind of faith. Not spectacular, but so steady. Like Abraham, he answered God's call not through words, but through a lifetime of walking towards others in kindness. When Yseph retired this past June, I had the honor of helping him write his remarks for that evening at Shaar Tzedek. An honor that I learned from Rabbi Bregman that he too had shared many years before I had arrived. It appears I took over not only the congregation, but the very honor and sacred mitzvah of helping Yseph write speeches when he needed them. Yseph began his remarks that evening characteristically with gratitude for God that he was even able to stand there that night, as he had been just that morning in the hospital and under doctor's orders to return there as soon as he was done that evening. And so Yseph stood, and I was there at Shaar Tzedek, and he recited Shehechianu, and then he quoted a verse from the Talmud from Brachot 17a. The verse is, one who devotes themselves faithfully to the needs of the community carries the merit of the entire community upon them. And he explained that this verse had guided him throughout his life, that to serve a community with integrity and devotion is to become part of the foundation that holds others up, especially in moments of grief and uncertainty. And then, with Joseph's typical humility, he said, if the merit of the community rests on those who serve it faithfully, then any merit that I have belongs to all of you, because you let me be of service. And that was Yseph. Gratitude wrapped in grace. He had carried the merit of this community, all of it, for 40 years. Reform, conservative, Orthodox, secular, and everything in between and on all sides. It didn't matter. He showed up for everyone. He saw a single Jewish people. His life was a master class in chesed shel emet, true kindness that cannot be repaid. He guided families through heartbreak and ritual, helping them honor life in the shadow of death. He taught hundreds of bar and bat mitzvah students. He ran the Chevra Kadisha. He visited almost every Shiva house, offered comfort to every mourner. And he blew the shofar so powerfully that his son David said that it shook the sanctuary and the heavens. During COVID, when no one could gather indoors, I learned that Yseph sat outside in a tent in the Shaar Tzedek parking lot in the freezing cold so that Torah could still be read. And when it was sweltering hot, he would walk across the city to another synagogue simply because someone there needed Torah to be heard. David said of his father, my father truly did it all, and he always did it for others, never for himself. His faith was as deep as Abraham's. David spoke so beautifully about him at his funeral in Jerusalem. He said, Hashem told Abraham he would have children, and he believed him with full faith. My father also had emunah, full faith. When Yseph retired and decided to move to Teaneck, New Jersey, to be near his children and his grandchildren, he did so with that same trust in life, in God and in family. Within days of leaving the hospital here in Vancouver, he made it happen, and it was everything that he hoped it would be. He was so happy, David said, going to Minyan and the JCC and the Chevra and having his children come for dinner on Shabbat morning. His eyes would light up when his family came through the door. He felt like the luckiest man in the world. I once saw Yseph at Rogers Arena during a Canucks game. Yseph loved the Canucks, and people would schlep him tickets from time to time. It was that game, though, when the kiss cam landed on him and Simone in the stands. I could see him laugh under the toque that was hiding his black velvet yarmulke. I also knew, and I don't think anyone else looking at that couple on the giant screen knew what I knew, that there was no way that Yseph was going to kiss Simone in public on a giant screen nonetheless. But then he looked right into the camera, he smiled, and he and Simone waved, like they were in on the joke. He knew how to laugh at the absurdity of life while honoring its sacredness. That was Yseph. Grounded, human, holy. He knew that the divine hides in the everyday, that the same hands that carry a Torah scroll can carry a casket, that holiness isn't just in prayer, but in presence. Through all of this, the center of Yosef's world was Simone. David told us that he loved my mother more than anything in the world. Even a few days before he died, he told us to take care of her if something happened to him. And when they were newly married and Simone's father passed away, Yseph welcomed her mother to live with them, not for a few days or weeks or even months, but for more than 30 years. David said that mitzvah, along with the countless others, the people he helped in life and in death, will stand with him and take him to the highest places in heaven. And of that I have no doubt. Though Yseph was deeply observant, he found holiness everywhere. He was as comfortable in Sharet Tzedek as he was here in Temple Shalom, sort of. As present at Beth Israel as he was at VTT. I remember one funeral when I was terribly sick, barely able to stand. And Yseph told me at the cemetery to sit down, and he said, "I'll take it from here." And then he led the rest of the graveside service, chanting El Malei Rachamim for our Reformed community without hesitation or reservation. Once, because of a scheduling mix-up, 2 funerals were happening in our community at the same time. And so Yseph drove the hearse with the casket here to Temple Shalom, and then he took my car and he drove that to the Beth Israel Cemetery, because a licensed funeral director must be present at the time of burial. Before he left the temple, he told me, "If I don't make it back in time, Rabbi, you drive the hearse, and I'll drive your car, and I'll meet you at the Temple Shalom Cemetery, and I'll meet you there for the burial." I didn't rush the service. But when I came down the stairs and saw that he wasn't there, I did a little bit one of these. I got behind the wheel, and I led the procession to White Rock. When I saw him later at the cemetery, I told him that it was the first time that I had ever driven a hearse and that I was the envy of all of our colleagues. He then asked me with a sweet smile, "Rabbi, you drove in the HOV lane, right? In the carpool lane?" Swear to God, that was his line. He called me often when he encountered a family that needed a bit more flexibility than perhaps other congregations could provide. He'd say, "Rabbi Dan, there's a family that needs you, and I know you'll take care of them." He never tried to make them conform to his way of Judaism. He never asked what kind of Jew someone was. He just showed up, met them in their grief, and helped them find comfort as they walked in the valley of the shadow of death. His life was a gesher, it was a bridge between observance and openness, between tradition and compassion, between the letter and the spirit of Torah. Abraham's journey begins with a single unseen act of courage, and so too the world continues because of unseen acts of righteousness. Our tradition calls such people the Lamed Vav tzadikim, or Lamed Vavniks, the 36 hidden souls whose goodness sustains creation. There is a mystical teaching that at all times there are 36 righteous souls, these Lamed Vav tzadikim, whose quiet goodness sustains the world. They are hidden saints, ordinary people whose decency and love keep creation from collapsing. They never think of themselves as righteous. They simply do what needs to be done with humility and devotion. I have no doubt that Yseph was one of them. No doubt. He would have denied it with a shy smile and said, no, I'm just doing what I can. But we knew. We saw it every day. In his steadfastness, in his steadiness, in his compassion, in his faithfulness. His righteousness wasn't grand or public. It was daily. It was gentle and real. He was a man who made you believe that goodness still exists, that holiness is not confined to prayer or to study, but lives in the way that we care for one another. That was his Torah. In our Parsha, when Abraham heard God's call, he left everything familiar behind and trusted that he would find blessing along the way. Yseph lived that same call in his final months. He left the community that he had served so faithfully here in Vancouver to journey to the land that God showed him, the land of his children and his grandchildren, and then finally to the land of his ancestors, Eretz Yisrael. Lecha was God's first call to Abraham, and it became God's last call to Yseph. Go forth, O faithful one. You have done what I have asked of you. You have carried my people, comforted my mourners, and sanctified my name. And now go to the land that I will show you. Yseph went forth surrounded by love, by Simone, by his children and his grandchildren, by friends and colleagues, by over 40 people that traveled from Vancouver to Israel to lay him to rest. David said, I am confident that the countless mitzvot my father performed and the countless people that he helped in life and in death will stand with him and take him to the highest places in heaven. And I believe that too. The Talmud teaches that when a tzaddik departs the world, their presence still sustains it, like an echo, perhaps even more than when they were alive. Yosef's presence will remain with us in this space too. In every act of compassion, in every kind word, in every moment of quiet service that no one sees but God. His legacy will live in every bridge that connects one Jew to another, and in every human being made a little less lonely because he cared. We are blessed to have known him, blessed to have been served, taught, and comforted by him, blessed to have called him our friend and our teacher. May his memory be for a blessing, and may we each in our own way continue the sacred work that he began, to walk humbly, to serve faithfully, and to help hold the world steady through love. Yehi Zichro Baruch, may the memory of Joseph Marciano forever be a blessing. Amen.